Hello followers and welcome back to my Minecraft tutorial. This is episode 58 and in today's episode we're going to be spending our final episode here on the Redstone tutorial world looking at the final two circuits that I'm going to be showing you, and that is the bud switch and the randomizer. So these two are classed as more advanced circuits. These two are kind of a bit different from everything else that we've covered so far. They have very specific uses. While I don't believe that the randomizers are that complicated, the bud switches can be, and if you want to know more about these, there is going to be a link down below in the description to the more advanced circuits page where you can actually check out some more information, because these are quite advanced to understand, certainly these, and I'm not going to explain absolutely everything about them because I fear that I might confuse some people, so I'm just going to stick to the basics with these and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So the first one is the bud switch. Now the bud switch is it stands for block update detector. It detects an update of when a block around it changes. So this relies on something called a piston quasi-connectivity, and if you don't know what that means, do not worry. All it means is pistons are bugged. Basically, but this has actually been on a discussion on the Mojang bug tracker page. Some people class it as a bug, some people class it as a feature. Mojang at the moment are saying it's a feature, but it acts a bit strangely. And let me show you what happens with these. So we have a lever which is just powering this repeater, which pushes the signal through the sand block to the other side. All seems fairly well normal, doesn't it? And to a degree it is. That's nothing wrong with that. But watch what happens here. See that? And that? This is a block update detector, and this one relies on the glass and sand, and this is called the glass and sand bud, and it detects an update because the piston is receiving quasi-connectivity. And don't worry about that word. All it means is basically that it's detecting an update when a block is placed against one of its faces. So here, underneath it, and also when a block gets removed. So whenever a block is placed or removed, it detects that and then it activates, but then this circuit gets cut here because it goes up and then it thinks all of a sudden, oh, I should not be powered, and it retracts. And that is what this is. It's a very, very fast bud switch. Similar thing here. This is the boat plate bud, and this boat is resting on the pressure plate, which is powering this, and it's telling this piston, this is also receiving quasi-connectivity, but again it doesn't know it yet until we place a block, and then it goes up and it shoots the boat up, taking it off the pressure plate, but as we know, boats float back down again and it rests on the pressure plate again. So these are what bud switches are, and they may seem a bit odd and they may not make a whole lot of sense, and that's because they don't. They're based on buggy behavior. They do have a few advanced uses, but typically not very common in survival. These are often merged with other circuits to make things like a T-bud, which is a combination of a T flip-flop and a bud switch, and you can actually make furnaces that light up and stuff like that. But this is what it's generally built as. There are more designs available, but most of them are based on bugs and they can get quite complicated, so I just wanted to try and give you an introduction to what bud switches are and how they can be used in that way. But honestly, these things don't have a lot of uses compared to some of the other things that we've looked at. These still remain a bit of an oddity, even as to whether it's a feature of the game or whether it's just a piece of buggy behavior. But if you want to know more about them, then you can actually check out the link down below if you want to know more, specifically relating to these things and how you can use them in more detail and how they're made. But these were the only two designs available on the wiki, so I figured it would make most sense to share these two. But that's what they're used for. There's not very much to talk about with them. Yeah, that's the bud switch, I guess. You could do something with this so that if you activate a piston, then it updates this, and you could do something with it. And Honestly, I would steer clear of these unless you really know what you're doing with redstone. I would steer clear of these because you could end up with some very unpredictable, strange results which may end up causing trouble with other circuits that we've looked at, because this circuit here is the only one that we've looked at in the series so far that is actually based on bugs and not based on intended behaviour. But as I say, some people believe that is intended behaviour, others don't, so we'll have to see on that one. To be honest, I would steer clear of these. We may look at them in the future, but they don't have many uses. I think some people have used them so that when a piece of wheat or something grows, or grass spreads back to a block, that they can do certain things with it, but I don't know. You'd have to look more detailed about that, but these are what these are. So yeah, let's move on to a circuit that makes a bit more sense, and that is an RNG, and that stands basically for Randomizer. And Randomizer, there are two randomizers here. There are three designs available. This is called an Analog 2 RNG, and that's because it has 2 items in it, and this is called an Analog 3 RNG because it has 3 items in it. There is another one called an Analog 16 RNG, but that is a very advanced randomizer that we probably won't come across a whole lot. It's not typically used in survival. It's used in big redstone builds and things like computers and stuff like that is what it's mainly used for. So we're just going to stick to the 2 simple ones, and if you want to know some uses of these, it's if you want something to happen that is entirely random, and I can give you a good example of that. A fireworks display. Now I don't have any fireworks on me, so we're just going to have to kind of make do amend here and put some dispensers on the end with some fire charges in it. Okay, so in this case we have a wooden sword and a stick, so it can reach a maximum power level of 3. So we're going to put a dispenser there facing upwards and some fire charges, and a similar thing over here, but we're going to set that to be 2 instead of 3 and put a stack of fire charges in there. Okay, so now what these are is when this button is activated, this activates the dropper, which puts something in the hopper, which then returns it straight back to the dropper. Now for that brief period of time that that item is in the hopper, the comparator can pick that up, as we learnt in the comparator episode, and it gives an output signal. And if that output signal reaches the dispenser, the fire charge will fire. So in here we have a wooden sword and a stick. Now let me explain the differences to you, the difference between these two. And as many of you by now will have probably known from this series, there are 3 types of items in this game. There are ones that stack up to 64, so pistons, redstone torches. Most of the blocks in the game stack up to 64. As you can see, lapis there sticks up to 64, stacks up should I say. Then you have some that stack up to 16, and they are signs, snowballs, ender pearls, those kind of things. They stack up to 16. And you also have ones that stack up to 1, and they are sort of tools, weapons, potions. What else stacks up to 1? Music discs, they stack up to 1. Horse armor in the 1.6, they now stack up to just 1. And there are a couple of other, I think, items around as well that will only stack up to 1. And I think the book and quill, I think, as well, you can actually only stack up to 1. So that is then scaled. We know that the comparator scales it. So this one counts as 1 full stack, so it will count as 1 full stack in here. So when the sword gets chosen, and this is the random part, we don't know if the sword will get chosen or the stick will get chosen. It's entirely random, and if the sword gets chosen, it goes into here and it makes it 1/5 full. And if you divide 15 by 5, you get 3. So you end up with it going through the comparator and then going out for 3. So that is how this works. So if I push this button, that time the sword got chosen. That time the sword got chosen. That time the sword got chosen. And that time. Jeez, this is... Ah, there you go, as you can see. That time it only activated 1. That was because the stick got chosen instead of the wooden sword. So again, here the stick got chosen, but now the sword got chosen again. So if you wanted to use this for a fireworks display, what you would do is you would hook this up to a redstone clock, and you would have a bunch of these with different fireworks in, and it would choose them randomly, and you could actually put them together and have them firing off at different times to get a nice firework display. That would be something that you could do. You could obviously change delays and stuff using repeaters if you wanted to, and the delays that certain things fire, so you could make a really nice randomized fireworks display, and we will do this when we actually look at fireworks. But there are a few other things. It's when you want something unpredictable to happen. So you want something entirely random to happen, you can use a randomizer. So that's how this one works. Now, according to the wiki, this says that each item will get chosen with equal probability. We've seen from our test today that that doesn't look very true. But if you did want to randomize it even more, you could actually use different items in here. So you could add more items that stack up to 1, and more items that stack up to 16, or more items that stack up to 64 to make it even more random. So we could make it more common, so now it has a 3 and 4 chance of choosing the sword, because we've added 2 more swords into this dropper. So now the fire charges should come out much more consistently. As you can see, they come out much more consistently. But if I take these out and I put in some different ones, say a melon slice and some stone bricks, some glass and a torch, for example, they all stack up to 64, the chances of a fire charge going off now are going to be lower. As you can see, not that time, not that time, not that time, not that time, not that time. So as you can see, it gets much lower. So you do have some flexibility in what you put in the dropper. Now, one thing to note is always make sure, unless the item stacks up to 1, that you choose different items. So if it stacks up to 16 or if it stacks up to 64, then make sure that these items are different from the ones that are already in the dropper. And that way you won't end up with conflicting problems, and it goes a bit weird. Basically, you always, just for the sake of this, just want to keep the items different, which is fair enough. You could fill up all 9 slots, you could fill up 5 slots, so you can choose how many you want. Obviously it's going to need to be more than 1, because if you choose 1, it's just going to pick the same one every time, so then it wouldn't really be a randomizer. So you need at least 2 items in here. So that is the analog to RNG. That's what that does. So now let's talk about the analog 3 RNG. And as you can see, this one looks similar in many ways to this one, but it has this redstone torch here and a piece of redstone dust which is active above the hopper. Now, if you know anything about hoppers, then you will know that that means that items cannot flow back into the dropper. So we have this for this particular reason here. We have 5 snowballs, and this is really important that you keep these items in the final slot of the hopper. That way, when an item goes into it and then goes back, these will never get chosen because the item will always go into the first slot. So basically what this does is it always creates a power level of 1. So now, whenever something goes in, say a wooden sword goes in, it's going to go to 4 instead of 3. If a stick goes in, then I believe that it will stay at 1, or it might go to 2. And if another snowball goes in, I think it goes to 2 as well. It depends on how it scales it. So here I have obviously the fire charges again as usual. In this particular circumstance it's going to have to be more than 1 obviously, because we have some items already in the item hopper. So now if I choose something from here, something got chosen, probably the stick, which means that this did not activate. Now that time it was either probably the snowball or the sword. I believe the snowball makes it stack up to 6, which gives it enough to get 2. The wooden sword will make it 4, and the stick will just remain at 1. So this does give you a bit more flexibility here. And what is this for? As I said, it's to stop the snowballs from flowing back, so you can use some slightly different numbers in this. That's all it's for. And also because you can store 3 items in there instead. So yeah, so here didn't get chosen that time, but did this time, did that time. Now again, the wiki states that this will be chosen with equal probability because there are 3 items, and here something's happened here now because this has got messed up. I think I pressed the button too fast is what happened there, because the stick got chosen. So let's put those back in there. You've always got to remember that these things have to go fairly slow before choosing again. But that is something that doesn't affect this one. So if you wanted something to be a bit slower but be perhaps more random, you would go with the 3 RNG. But if you wanted something to be faster but less random, then you would go with the analog 2 RNG. So you can add more items which stack up to 1, 16 or 64, but again make sure that they're different. So I could add a wooden sword in here, I could add maybe a bunch of wooden swords, and it should activate more often. As you can see, it's activating more often now. If I take these out, but I put more random items in again as we did before that stack up to 64, it should have a lower chance of shooting out a fire charge, as you can see here. So this is what randomizers are for. They are designed to give you completely random results. They spontaneously choose an item from the dropper when it gets powered, which then goes into the hopper. And in this particular design, when I power this Redstone Dust, it energizes this block, as we know, which turns this Redstone Torch off just for a brief second, so that this item can just pass back through into the dropper before it activates again. So this means that it can be reused over and over. So that's how that works. So these are the two different ones. If you want to know more about the analog 16 RNG, it's quite a complex circuit, but if you want to know more, there will be a link down below in the description to that page where you can check that out. So you will also notice if you go on the advanced circuits page, there are two circuits we have not covered, and they are the ABBA circuit and the multiplexer. Now those two circuits are very advanced circuits that we are not going to be looking into, because they are designed for construction of computers and all more advanced type stuff than what we're covering right now. If you want to know more about them, you can play around with them yourselves in a survival world perhaps, or in a creative world. I would certainly recommend, because they are quite a complex thing to actually look into. Multiplexers generally are designed for computers. They are classed as an advanced logic gate, I believe, but I'm not going to go into that currently. I think that we've done enough to the level now where I think most people could do pretty much anything they wanted to with Redstone in survival. Certainly in relation to things like randomizers, T flip-flops, you know, RS NOR latches, the logic gates that we studied and stuff like that. I don't think now that it would make much sense to make it really advanced, because some people probably won't want to do that. So I just kind of picked out the two most interesting ones and the most useful ones, which were the randomizers and the bud switches. But they are there if you want to know more about them. Don't ask me about them, because I haven't looked into them, to be absolutely honest. I really don't know much about them at all, so I'm not going to be much help to you there. But if you do have any questions regarding the bud switch or the randomizer, then I will be more than happy to help. So please put them in the comments and I will be more than happy to answer. As I say, as with all the videos in this series. So yeah, if you want to build a fireworks display, I would highly recommend going with the randomizer route. We will eventually do this in a tutorial when I get a more reliable source of gunpowder going, so that I can actually make the fireworks, because I don't have many, I don't have much gunpowder, nor do I have a lot of paper either, so it wouldn't make much sense at this point to try and do this. So yeah. Next episode we are going to be looking at the daylight sensor back on the regular tutorial world, and from that point on we are going to be leaving this world behind after this episode. If you want to download what we've looked at today, that will be in the description, where you can download this section and play around with this stuff yourself. As I say, all the links you will need are going to be down below, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. So today we learnt about the bud switch and its quirky properties, and we didn't really look at many uses of this, because quite frankly there isn't any. Certainly in survival there are some combinations of these things with other things which we might look at, such as a T-bud, but really I don't think there are many uses for this. But we talked about what piston quasi-connectivity is, and that is when a piston wakes up and detects that it should be updated even though it really shouldn't because it's a bug, and then it realizes then that it shouldn't be, and then it retracts. So it doesn't really make any sense, I know, but it was there. It can be a useful device, but not really. It's used in more advanced circuits, I think, from my understanding. And then we looked at the randomizers, which can create unpredictable results if you want that. And we talked about some of the uses, including a fireworks display. So that's going to be about it from me, guys. There's not a whole lot more to say about these two devices. I've kind of covered them in as much detail as I can. So as I say, next episode we'll be back on the normal world, and I hope to see you there. I hope that you've enjoyed this series of Redstone tutorials on this world. I hope that you have found my decision to actually use a separate world better than trying to do it on the survival world that we have for the other tutorials. And I hope that you have actually learned something out of this series. That was the aim throughout all of this mini-series in Redstone, that you have learnt something that you didn't know before, and maybe even you've learnt a couple more things. So if you have, then I am extremely happy, because that is what I set out to do, and I really appreciate anybody who watches this series, because I actually put a lot of time into researching these things myself. I actually hadn't done a lot with Redstone, certainly to this level, in the past, so it was quite a bit of work on my part to actually research all this stuff and then set up demos and actually look at what uses there were and all those kind of things. So I hope that you have reaped the benefits of my hard work there, and you will continue to enjoy the series. So I hope to see some of your new exciting Redstone contraptions soon. If you do have a video, by the way, of something that you have learnt from this series, please send it to me, either on Twitter, or you could send it as a video response to this particular video if it was about either the randomizers or the bud switch. If you have any videos relating to any of the subjects that we've covered, please send them to me. I will accept them as a video response, and then you will be able to see my viewers go to your channel, and we can all grow and diversify together. Man, I sound like such a teacher, don't I? We'll all grow and diversify together. But anyway, that's going to be about it from me, guys. I'm beginning to ramble now. I hope that you found this episode useful and informative, and I hope to see you next time. So until then, guys, see you later, and have a good day.